misrepresenting resistance as misalignment is the big takeaway. Is there fear there? Is there blame there? Are there rationalized? If that's the thinking that's underneath that, it's going to be showing up in other places in your business. A Gary V type of mentality of like, you need to be working 18 hours of the day and you'll sleep when you die. And so I would not be likely to hire somebody who had kind of that Gary V mentality, because the most important thing is, hello. Today I want to talk about how to tell the difference between when something is in resistance, when you're in resistance around something, versus something is misaligned or not aligned to you and it means something that you shouldn't move forward into. So how are you able to identify when you're in resistance versus something is not aligned with you? I think this is really important because there's a fine line between the two ideas, and it can feel like, oh, okay, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Am I just disliking it? And so I really want to dig into how can you tell the difference between those two things so that you can actually take action on the things that are going to move you forward, versus looking at things and thinking, this is not the right fit for me. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like I'm enjoying running my business. Those kinds of feelings that come up. I think if you don't really address this, that's where you can lead down to feeling really frustrated in your business, feeling burnt out in your business, feeling like you have a resentment relationship with your business, all of those things. But if you really solve this, what I think it allows you to do is to recognize when you are in resistance and be able to move through that and able to get to the result much quicker. When I've had issues in my business around resistance, one example that I always point to is there was a conversation I had with my husband about filling my retreat. And I told him, I don't know who else to invite. I don't know what to do from here. And he said, well, have you thought about inviting this person, this person, this person? And I was like, oh, I immediately went into like, I haven't sent messages to these people because I had resistance around sending them the message and the rejection and what might happen. What will they say? What will they think of me if I invite them to this retreat? What does that mean? There are people who I was friends with, so now I'm going to have a business relationship with them. So all this resistance showed up. And so I told him I was going to go lay down. And then later on, after I laid down, I would send the messages or I would follow up with these people. So I went to my bed to lay down and I tossed and turned for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I got up and I grabbed my phone and I shot off those 3 messages to the people. And then I threw my phone down and I rolled over and I took a nap for 30 minutes. And after that, me being willing to move through that resistance, I ended up turning 2 of those 3 people into clients that worked with me. And it resulted in $16,000 in business from me sending those 3 messages. So that is really the key thing about how resistance might show up for you. It's like, it might be that you don't want to send messages to somebody, or when a project starts getting hard, you don't want to keep pushing through into actually completing the project, or somebody asks you go through the sales call and you actually close the sale. And then after the sale, not sending an invoice. That's where another example of how resistance could show up, not sending contracts, not sending invoices so that you can actually get paid, so you can actually move forward with serving your clients. Those could all be forms of resistance. Not wanting to get on lives and do video, that could be another form of resistance. So let's talk about what is truly the difference between those two things. So that's what resistance can show up as. Let's talk about the difference between the two. So when I talk about resistance, what I'm talking about is that there is an action, a task, an activity that's in your business that you know would provide value to you, you believe would provide value to your business, but there is a barrier, emotional barrier between you and taking that action. So it might be fear that comes up for you. It's often fear that comes up with a resistance. So I don't want to do that because I'm afraid X. Another thing that might come up when it's resistance is blame. So you're going to start blaming it on the factors and circumstances around you. Another sign that you're in resistance, blaming it on not having the time. You're blaming the amount of time. I can't do this right now. The one that's been coming up a lot in conversations when I see people just like DMing and talking about, oh, how's your business going? They're like, oh yeah, I haven't really gotten to that because the kids aren't back in school yet. I'm just waiting for the kids to get back in school. How many times have you heard that? When the kids get back in school, then everything's going to be different and I'm just going to like take care of everything. How true is that? Definitely a sign that you're in resistance. There's blame. Blame could also show up with money. It's like, oh, I don't have extra money sitting around. How frequently does anybody have extra money sitting around? It's really about priorities and choices on how we spend that money. So another area that you could see blame showing up. So that blame and fear are two key indicators that something is resistance versus it actually being the misalignment. And the last one to look at when we're talking about if something is resistance versus not aligned is that you'll come up with rational lies. And the rational lies are like reasons that make a ton of sense when you say them out loud. And if you said them to anyone who's not a mindset coach, they would probably be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. So for instance, I'm gonna get started in a couple months because I know that I'm going to have X, Y, and Z resources available to me at that point. Or, I'm sick right now, so I'm going to wait until I go to see the doctor. And then after I go and see the doctor, then I'm going to start this exercise program with you. All of those things can be resistance. Because is the true that you couldn't do anything for your health? Isn't it even more important now while you're sick for you to do something to address your health versus waiting until after you're not sick and after you've seen the doctor? Yes, of course, should be that the urgency for you to address your health is right there. It's especially clear and distinct then, so that would be the perfect opportunity for you to do something, but you're in resistance. So the rational lies, the blame, and the fear, and all together, you may hear me talk about the concept of the cycle of stuck, and that's really about resistance and being stuck. Will show up through those three different ways that you can recognize if resistance is showing up for you or for someone else, whether or not it's really actually misalignment or it's just resistance. So let's talk about what misalignment actually means. And this is really important because when I work with clients and we're talking about how do I address my visibility, how do I do marketing, how do I do sales, and really make sure that I show up in a way where I can be consistent, that's where alignment is really, really important, because I believe that alignment is the foundation for consistency. By being able to find something that's aligned with you, you can actually create an action that you're going to continue taking over and over and over again. When you choose actions and you choose things that are misaligned with you, that's when it becomes impossible to stay consistent with something, and you end up in the situation where you have this resentment, you have this overwhelm, you have all these other negative, the frustration, all the negative feelings associated with your business because you're choosing things that are not aligned with you. And so that misalignment is really what it comes down to, is the making sure that the way that you structure your business model, the actions that you take, the way you market, the way you sell is aligned with your values, that is aligned with who you are, the things that you value, who you are as a person. And so the way that I approach this when I work with somebody is we do it through the lens of playfulness. And what feels playful to you in how you approach marketing? What feels playful for you in terms of how you approach sales? How can we turn this into something that's fun, that's playful, that's like a game, so that you can actually enjoy this? And when running your business is fun, that's when your business is more successful, when you're consistent. So really, you have to deal with that alignment first before you'll get to the point of consistency, and then consistency is what creates results in your business. So what do you do? How do you know if something is misaligned? That's really when you need to have a strong understanding of why you're in business and what are your core values. And when you have some of those value conflicts, that's when you really need to take a close look at what's happening here. Is this misaligned? So I had a conversation today with my client, and she was talking about an opportunity to do a mentorship with some other coaches through her status as a veteran. And she was telling me about the ideas that they had given her, and she's just like, something's telling me like this just really isn't a fit. And they were telling her things that were very aggressive. They were like, you need to talk to your realtor and get him to kick out these other people that are in the space so that you can expand your business and take over the space that they used to have. And it's like, that is a misalignment, because her ethos of her brand is around community. It's around connection. The kind of person that she is, she wants to lift up other business owners. That's a misalignment. If you have somebody coming in who's telling you, get aggressive, kick other people out, make them have to leave their space and find somewhere else to run their business, is that an alignment with the sense of community, connection, and lifting other business owners up? No, it's not. So that's a misalignment. So for her to step away from working with those mentors would not an example of her being in resistance. That's her really seeing and recognizing, okay, are these people in alignment with me? So always looking when we're hiring people, when we're bringing on team members as hiring, or if we're bringing on mentors and we're bringing on consultants, strategists, are they aligned in the way that they run their business, in the way that they are asking, that they're advising their clients to run their business, and making sure that those things are the same. And this is something that's really key for me when I'm looking at partnering with people, showing up on somebody's show, when I'm looking at bring someone on as a client, when I'm looking to hire someone as a client. All of that is really, really important for me to make sure that there's alignment there, and that we share alignment around values, what's important to us, how we want to show up. For me, certain things, it's like the idea of the big ideas for me, playfulness, being able to build things while prioritizing time and fun and family. And so if somebody were asking me or telling me, okay, you need to build your business in a way where you put all that stuff on the shelf, this is kind of a little bit of maybe a Gary Vee type of mentality of like, you need to be working 18 hours of the day and you'll sleep when you die, and all of that kind of mindset is definitely out of alignment with me. And so I would not be likely to hire somebody who had kind of that Gary Vee mentality. Not to say that it's wrong, it's just not in alignment with me, and that would be a better alignment with someone else. So that's what the difference is when we're talking about alignment versus resistance. So the resistance, the key indicators you want to look for when it comes to am I in resistance, are those three things showing up. Is there fear there? Is there blame there? Are there rationalized there? If one of those three are showing up, it's very likely that that is an example of resistance. And the best thing to do when we're in resistance is to first notice it, see what's happening here, and then we take action. So taking action in the face of resistance is what's really going to move us forward. We don't need to sit there and wrestle with the resistance and think our way through it. The most important thing when we notice that resistance showing up is taking action in the face of that resistance, often imperfect. You'll hear me talk about that a lot as well. That is the most important thing when we notice resistance is showing up. On the other hand, when it comes to alignment, if we're noticing that something is misaligned, after we recognize that, it's really making sure that we're checking in to understand, okay, why is this something that isn't aligned with me? And then taking action to go in a direction that is aligned with your core values, makes sense for the kind of business that you want to build, the kind of character that you want to have, the way you want to show up in the world, who you want to be in growing your business, and in being able to create the impact you want to have in the world. So I hope that is helpful for you. I know that this has been showing up a lot in my, and it's showing up for a reason. So I wanted to come on here to share that with you and help you to be able to distinguish the difference between the two of those things. I'm a tiny bit woo, but I'm not too much woo. And there's a lot of people who can get very woo woo, and they'll be able to just say like, oh yeah, that's just not aligning with me right now. That's just not, my chakras, and it's just not, I'm not feeling that, and my inner whatever is telling me. And I am all for everyone to have as much woo as they like in their life, but the important thing is that you can't let that idea of, or basically misrepresenting resistance as misalignment is the big takeaway. Is like, don't let what is truly resistance be misrepresented as, oh, it's misaligned, it's not something that I should be doing. It's like, no sis, you're just in resistance and you need to do that. Or you need to examine why you're not doing doing that thing, because really it might be a mindset issue underneath it. Even if you still choose not to do it, for instance, it's like, hey, I don't want to do Reels and TikToks. Okay, that's fine, but let's examine the thinking that's underneath why you don't want to do Reels and TikToks, because the most important thing is, are you getting the result you want? And if you're not getting the result you want, we need to examine the thinking that's underneath why you're saying, I'm not willing to try something in order to get the result that I want. Because if that's the thinking that's underneath that, it's going to be showing up in other places in your business, and ultimately it's going to hold you back from getting the result that you want. So enjoy the rest of your day.